So here I'm gonna feed my starter. So I just poured the starter into this bowl and I have 72 grams. And so now I'm going to zero it out and I'm gonna put 72 grams, or roughly there around, of flour. No, close enough. Zero that out. And then 72 grams of water. And then, yep, went over there again. I'm gonna zero that up. And then I'm just gonna mix that up, and that's how I feed my starter. And I can put that in the refrigerator, and it can sit there for a while before it needs to be fed again. Or I'm gonna have this sit overnight and do, and then add it to the other ingredients in the morning. I'm gonna make sure that all of that gets mixed in really well. And this should be ready in about 8 hours or so, maybe less, maybe more. You just want to check on it and see if it's bubbling up. So now that this starter is nicely mixed, a couple of options. I can take a lid and just loosely put it on there and sit it on the counter. And like I said, in several hours, maybe 8 hours, this should be bubbling up and ripened, and it's ready to mix. Or what you can do is you can clamp it down, seal it up, and then put that in the refrigerator. So it's been about 5 hours, and as you can see, the starter is starting to bubble up, so that's telling me that it's ripe. And you can also see some of the air bubbles down below within the starter. It also will have a different smell as well, and so then that's how you'll know that your starter is ready to be mixed in with your flour, your water, and your salt to start making your bread. Take my ripened starter. I'm going to put, this is for 2 loaves of bread, so you have one to keep, one to give away. I'm going to do 190 grams of ripened starter. 190 grams of starter. And then I'll want to make sure that I always have a little bit left over to refeed. So I'm going to try and keep just a little bit in there, even like 25 grams to refeed and reuse. That's close enough. And I'll add some more stuff to this to refeed it. So I have 185, 190 grams in there, and then I'm going to add about 930. I'm going to restart it. 930 grams of flour. I'm going to use white bread flour. And I use King Arthur's bread flour. So I'm just going to load that in there. About 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm going to use King Arthur's whole wheat. And I'm going to get about, like I said, 930 grams. Almost there, 900, a little over. I'm going to restart that, and I went about 17 to 18 grams of salt. 17, that was way too much salt. But, that happens. And then I'm going to zero it out again, and then I'm going to add my water, which I think is about 600 grams. Okay, and then just using my hands, I'm going to mix all of that. I'm going to take off my ring. I'm going to mix all of that together. And then as I'm doing this, it's a very wet dough. And so you'll have to be constantly working it off of your fingers. And with sourdough, I have found that if it doesn't feel really wet and difficult to mold, it's not hydrated enough. You need to add more water. So you want it to be feeling like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to shape this? And I'm kind of working some of that flour off of the edges, working it off of my fingers, and just trying to get all of that starter and salt and flour mixed in there together. And then I'm going to let this sit for about, I might add just a little bit more water here in a moment. But I'm going to let this sit for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to do 2, sometimes 3 stretch and fold intervals, which you'll see here in a minute. So I've had the dough covered with just a towel for about 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna do stretch and folds. And here's what that looks like. You see how kind of mangy the dough is looking. This is gonna help strengthen it, and it's gonna trap in air. So I'm just going to, with my hands, I'm gonna scrape it up from the bottom, and I'm gonna lift up the dough and fold it over. So that's 1. And then I'm going to do that from all the different angles. There's 2. And again, I'm going to try and scrape it off the side, and then it's already getting stronger. There's 3. I'm going to do it one more time. And I'm lifting it up, stretching it, and then I'm going to fold it over on top of itself. Great, that's it. And you want to do it certainly once. If you can get 2 or 3 times in, that's great, and you'll do that. So what I'll do right now, I'll put a towel over it again, give it 15 minutes, and then do this a second time. And after that process, you'll just let it sit for the to bulk up. So this is a part that is one of the more difficult parts. So I've already put a little bit of flour on the board, on the cutting board, and I've just dropped my dough on there after it has reached its bulk phase. And so I've dumped this here. So I'm going to take my bench knife, and I'm going to first, for my kiddos, because they like to have a little Play-Doh to play with, I'm going to cut off a couple pieces for them to play with. So that will be for them. And then what I'm going to do is, because our recipe was enough for 2 loaves, I'm going to cut it in half. And it's a really wet dough, so it's really nice to have that bench knife and a little bit of flour down. And I'm going to use my bench knife a lot for this process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically fold this bread over itself like that. I'm going to use my bench knife, and I'm going to pull it up and fold it over like that. And then I'm going to use my bench knife to kind of make it into a ball shape. And I'm just tucking the sides underneath it. And then I'm going to, as I scrape, I'm going to be pulling the bread a little bit, the dough, and that's going to pull the top of it taut. And eventually you'll see sometimes even little bubbles begin to pop up on the top, like right there is that bubble forming. So as this gets tight, all that air will start coming up too. So now look at the difference now that I've done that. So I'm going to do that, repeat that over here. Again, I'm going to take a side, I'm going to fold it, and then I'm going to fold it again. Some people do 4. I usually get away with 3. And then I'm going to start tucking these sides underneath each other. So you kind of just all the way around. And it'll start getting tight on the top. And you don't want too much flour on your board, because then the bread will slide, the dough will slide too much, and it won't get that tightness that you need when you're forming your bowl here. And then you can just let that rest. And then you can repeat that, or after you let this rest for a couple minutes, you can just drop this into your proofing basket that you have floured as well. Now that I have my bowls here, I'm going to go ahead, this is my bread basket. I'm going to go ahead and drop in my flour. And you can see all these lines. It's really nice to have in a proofing basket, because after you rub the flour into those lines, that's what will create the lines on your baked sourdough. So it'll create some really beautiful patterns. And you also want to have that flour in there, because when the dough is done proofing, because it's such a wet dough, it can stick to the sides really, really easily. And so this will help it to fall out of your proofing basket. And so now that I have that, I'm going to take the ball that I have here, and I'm going to scoop underneath it and flip it upside down. So I want this nice taut area upside down like this. You can see there's a difference on this side, the underbelly, than the top side. And then I'm going to put a towel over this, and I will just let this rest and proof for about an hour or two, and I'll show you what it'll look like when it's finished proofing. So I have 2 pieces of dough here that I've been proofing for about the same amount of time. And notice when I go to push in, see how that bounces back? That tells me it has that nice little spring. See, that one doesn't as much. That's still a little sticky. See how it's sticking to me? But over here, this one bounces nicely. So this one is proofed and ready to go. This one needs a little more time. Both of the doughs are done proofing. They both have a nice spring back when I push on them. So now I'm gonna put flaxseed down on top of them like this. And then I'm going to take parchment paper. I'm going to lay it over the top of one. And then I'm going to put a cutting board over the top of that. And I'm going to flip it. Oh, that came out really easily. It's not always that easy. But you see those lines? Those are from the lines in the proofing basket. So it's really nice when you can get those into your dough. And what else I'm going to grab is I'm going to grab a little brush. Not so little when it's a grill tool. And then I'm going to brush away all this stuff on the side. Otherwise, it'll bake into the side of the bread, which isn't bad. You can eat it. It's just a lot. It's a lot of flour and flaxseed when you're cutting into your bread. So I'll swoop those off to the edge there. And then I'm going to take my lane, which is basically a razor blade. You can buy some nice ones like this off of Amazon. I think this was like $10, or you can just use the razor blade. But it's easier when you have a handle like this. And then you can cut your pattern into the bread. This is called scoring. And when I have these really, really nice circles, I don't want to really over design it when I already have a nice pattern there. So I'm just going to cut just down the middle like that. Just going to cut down the middle. And now my Dutch ovens, they've been baking in the oven or heating up at 450 degrees for about an hour now. So this is now ready to be set into the Dutch oven. So I have placed the dough into the Dutch oven. I'm going to put the lid on. And I have mine from Lodge, which I think is just a great product. And again, 450 degrees. And I'm going to put it in the oven covered for about 22 minutes. Okay, it's been about 25 minutes. I'm going to take off this lid and let all of that steam out. Oh, wow, yeah. Look at that. You can see how that's broken apart there. Looks beautiful. All right, I'm going to take this lid off here as well. That one is pretty good. I'm going to let that cook now. Still at 450 for about another 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to pull this loaf out. Okay, there's one. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull it up by the there it is. And that's how, from our lines in the proofing basket, and from where we scored it, that's where it opened up. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You may go. And it's looking pretty good. I'm going to let that sit for a little bit and then I'll cut into it.